Tier 5 is finally out. For the first time in 14 years, we got to experience Serpentshrine Cavern and Tempest Keep in their full glory. But a lot has changed in 14 years, and so did the players. For comparison, originally in 2007, Lady Vashj was killed 2.5 months after release by the guild Neilum, and Kael'Thas another 2 months after that by the same guild. This time around, the famous guild Progress managed to clear both raids in just 1 hour and 40 minutes. This is a complete contrast to the original amount of time it took to clear those raids 14 years ago. And even with Blizzard fine-tuning those raids on the public test realms for about a month and making sure that they're aligned with what players are capable of nowadays, Progress and the rest of the high-end guilds still went there and destroyed those raids. So how exactly did they do that, and who's behind those insane guilds? Let's find out. So first off, Progress was obviously not the only guild competing for World First. There was actually a bunch of super high-end guilds that all cleared those raids very shortly after Progress. In fact, World First Kael'Thas was actually not from Progress, but from the guild Salad Bakers, since they decided to start with TK instead of SSC. But Progress was the first guild in the world to clear both raids. Although that victory was very tightly matched by another incredible guild that came out of nowhere, Beef Bar, but more about them in a moment. For now, let's talk about some Burning Crusade history. A lot of you probably know this, but for those who don't, originally in 2007, Burning Crusade actually released with all those raids from the get-go. Although very buggy and held behind a long attunement process, which has you clear every raid before it, Tier 5 and actually even Tier 6 with Mount Hyjal were technically accessible from day one. Whereas for the sake of keeping the longevity of the game and having enough content to cover its 1.5 to 2 years of existence, Blizzard decided this time around to split Tier 4 and Tier 5 into 2 different patches, released a couple months apart. Now, I think you start to see one major reason why these raids were cleared under 2 hours instead of 2 months originally. It's simply because players have been getting geared up and attuned to enter the raids for the last 2 months. And this could be a reason on its own why it was so fast. But obviously, there's way more to it than that. Another major factor is knowledge. Think about any extremely hard recent boss released in Shadowlands. Now take that boss, have people practice it non-stop on private servers for years, and release it again in 14 years. I'm willing to bet that that boss won't last a single hour. Now, to be fair, Progress and a lot of the guilds that were competing yesterday night never even did any of these raids 14 years ago, let alone on private servers. And although they all had the chance to try them on the public test realms for the last month, the point is here, having knowledge out there and knowing what to do based on what other people did for the last 14 years is what made these raids considerably easier for a lot of people, instead of going completely blind in them. So anyways, let's now talk about the raids themselves. SSC and TK are 6 and 4 bosses raids respectively. This may look like very few bosses by today's standards, and even when you compare it to classic raids, but the thing is, the reason why you'll still spend 3 to 4 hours per night and per each one of these raids clearing them is because there's an incredibly high amount of trash. And a lot of people may argue that the trash is actually harder than the bosses themselves. So when Tetsu turned on his stream and we saw Progress just flying off the elevator with their rocket boots and slow fall right into the water in SSC and then followed by water walking potions, you can start to understand why the tides instantly turned for this race. That being said, a lot of other guilds also did the same. Even in Tempest Keep, you had guilds like Insidious skipping probably hours worth of trash with invisibility potions. Simply an insane amount of time saved. But specifically in SSC, basically the whole raid is elevated, and everything underneath is water. Now normally, if you jump in that water, you're supposed to die to the fish that will attack you. But if you use water walking potions or a shaman gives you water walking, like Progress did, you can pretty much just skip every trash mob and just focus on the bosses. There's even other more insane guilds that took it a step further by jumping on the pipes wipes in the ceiling using slowfall and rocket launchers. Just an insane amount of prep. But you can see how it's very easy in SSC to save probably hours worth of time by just skipping trash that way. So that's a tip for your guild if you're bored of doing trash every night. And that's exactly what the top guilds in the world did. But anyways, the trash is just half the story here. When it comes to the bosses, all these guilds obviously overperformed and pulled off insane numbers that helped them sometimes skip entire mechanics. The thing you have to understand here is, unlike retail where guilds have hundreds of attempts per boss, in a TBC world first race, if you wipe on a boss and you have to run back, it pretty much means you're disqualified. In fact, both Progress and Beef Bar had 0 wipes, and coupled with trash skips, this is what allowed them to clear both raids in just under 2 hours. As a reminder, all those bosses have been fine-tuned on their public test realms by Blizzard to have them align with what modern players are capable of nowadays. That being said, because TBC raids only have one difficulty, and because all types of players play this game, hardcore and casuals, you can only push the difficulty by so much when you're a developer. And that's why hardcore guilds like these just steamroll through the content. Let's talk about Lady Vashj for a moment. This is a brutal boss, quite a contrast to the rest of SSC. There's a big amount of coordination that needs to happen to take her down. Obviously, Progress did it with no problem. They even did some small tricks to down her even faster. For example, they were pulling her away from the middle of the platform before phase transitions. That way, she'd run back to the middle and you'd be able to get a couple more percentages worth of damage on her before she became immune. Very smart. Let's now jump 14 years in the past and compare that to the world's second kill of Lady Vashj from Method, since Nihilim didn't record their world first. As you can see, everyone in the raid was using world buffs. That's right, up until patch 2.1, world buffs from vanilla still worked in TBC. That's how a lot of these guilds like Nihilim and Method managed to down Lady Vashj. Then Blizzard deemed those world buffs just too powerful and simply removed them from raids, and that's still the case today in classic TBC. One more thing to note is that mind control that Lady Vashj is doing. You may think this only goes off on specific players, but actually anyone in the raid is prone to getting mind controlled, tanks, healers, or DPS, making this raid very RNG dependent. In fact, this mechanic was so RNG that Blizzard removed it shortly after in patch 2.2, but you'll see that Vashj still does it in classic TBC today, and even with that happening and the boss being technically harder, given Blizzard fine-tuned the values, those top-end guilds like Progress and Beef Bar are not even twitching. This goes to show how far players have came in 16 years of World of Warcraft and gaming in general. But anyways, Progress claimed world first Lady Vashj, shortly followed by Beef Bar, and as I said earlier, some guilds like Insidious and Salad Bakers decided to start with Tempest Keep instead. So Kael'Thas world first was actually already claimed by that time. But the real challenge obviously is to clear both raids. So Progress went off to Tempest Keep the second they downed Lady Vashj. And obviously by using invisibility potions, rocket boots, and a bunch of other tricks up their sleeves, they also managed to skip a bunch of trash and quickly made it to the bosses. The thing to know about Tempest Keep is that this is pretty much a very easy raid overall. The only difficulty resides in the trash and Kael'Thas himself. Other than that, you'll be steamrolling most of the bosses here if you're in a guild like Progress. One specific example is Void Reaver, or famously called Loot Reaver, because of how easy he is to kill. One tactic that a lot of guilds actually use is that they just stack everyone on melee and have 3 hunters stay on the outside and kite the orbs around. The thing is, Void Reaver does do melee damage to everyone in melee actually, so if you do that, everyone in the raid will be taking damage, but it's nothing unbearable really, and definitely not an issue for a guild like Progress or Beef Bar. But yeah, Progress managed to clear every boss, and after skipping a bunch of trash, they were finally facing Kael'Thas himself, one of the hardest bosses in TBC. This boss is no joke. Again, it took Nihilim in original TBC 2 months from the moment they killed Lady Vashj to finally kill Kael'Thas. And contrary to popular belief, Kael'Thas didn't receive much nerfs or changes at all. He did have the odd bug here and there from time to time that did get fixed, but if you go through through the TBC patch notes, you won't find much about this encounter. In fact, there actually was a bug that was active during Progress's run, and I think it's still active as of the time of writing this video. During phase 3 of Kael'Thas, he would randomly drop aggro on the tank. That was frustrating for a lot of guilds, but obviously Progress handled it like pros. It's worth noting at this point that both Progress and Beef Bar are pretty much neck to neck. But let's talk about Beef Bar, this European guild from Stonespire, which no one heard of before, and which had World 74 on Gruul and McTheridan, came out of nowhere and was competing with Progress, the multi-world first guild that has been playing since the start of Classic and competing with guilds like Apes and Salad Bakers. Both guilds had very different comps, with Beef Bar having a more heavy throughput comp with an insane amount of warlocks, and Progress opting for a more classical, very balanced comp, but they were still neck to neck. It was really intense to watch this race, but finally, at the end, Progress took the win, and shortly after followed by Beef Bar for World 2nd. And this brought an end to probably one of the most fun and engaging races that we ever seen in Classic. Beef Bar, this guild no one ever heard of, against the #1 guild of Classic. This is very promising for the future, and I can't wait to see what the Black Temple plus Mount Hyjal race will look like. And of course, the insanely hard Sunwell Plateau eventually. But yeah, as you can see, to answer the question in the title of this video, the reason why Tier 5 was cleared in just under 2 hours is mainly because of the raids being split from Tier 4 into their own patch, a very large amount of prior knowledge from private servers, an insane amount of dedication and preparation from those top guilds in the world, and obviously just a bit of luck so that everything goes to plan. With that, this brings an end to this video. This was a bit different from what we usually do on this channel, so let me know what you thought of this video in the comments. And of course, I hope you found it interesting or entertaining. And remember to like and subscribe to the Classic WoW Curios channel for more content like this. I will see you guys in the next one very soon. Bye for now.